قال الله العظيم في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن المتقين في جنات وعيون آخذين ما آتاهم ربهم إنهم كانوا قبل ذلك محسنين كانوا قليلا من الليل ما يهجعون. آمنا بالله، صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
The night, the time of rest, the time of silence, the time in the day where everything comes to a standstill. Allah Azza wa Jal, when He speaks about the night, He says, وَجَعَلَ اللَّيْلَ سَكَنًا. The night is a time of rest. All creatures stop and they come to a stop, a standstill, a moment where they rest. In another verse in the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَاللَّيْلِ وَمَا وَسَقْ. That the night is also the time that basically, you know how everything disperses during the day. Everyone goes out in the day to their workplace. Wasaq here, it means where they unite, they combine. Everyone returns to their home place. The night is where everyone comes for shelter. In the old days, people would leave cities. They'd go out the city gates. While they're outside the city gates, what would happen? They do their business and all that. They return within the city gates before the dark and they close off the city. They seal off the city. It's a time where everyone returns to their place. Because the night is darkness. And a darkness forms a veil. And Allah Azza wa Jal in the Quran mentions many times in the Quran where He says, وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا. That when He mentions in the verse وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا, or it says وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَى. When He speaks about this, it talks about a cover or a veil. That the night forms a cover. It forms a cover for everything. Of the things that the night forms a cover is for the things that move around to scavenge, like the rats and the rodents. The night forms a cover. You know, when you hear that saying, you know, it was the night before Christmas, that poem that they read, and then they say not even a mouse. That the mouse is the last thing in the house that will be running around. When no one's there, what happens? Usually the mice come out because there's no one around to do everything. Everyone's fast asleep. The rodents come out to scavenge. The insects, spiders have prepared their webs for the hunt. Everyone moves around. Even the predators in general. You take a look at lions. Have you ever watched those National Geographic videos? You notice a lot of these videos, the lions in the videos have got green eyes. Have you ever noticed that? That's because it's all the night vision filming. The hunt is always when? In the night. Predators come out in the night. This is when they can use their predatory skills at best. This is where they have all the cunning. And this is where they have what? They have the shade of the night. They are concealed. And this is what gives them that advantage. Also, the night is the night of the promiscuous. Those that wish to commit sin go out and do things in the night. They have the cover of the night. Even the inebriate zombies of society, you know, the drunks that walk through the city, you see them roaming the streets at night. This is the time where all the bad people come. Even if you watch the old movies, the news, bad guys always hung out when? In the night, this is where everything took place. And this is why Allah Azza wa Jal says in Surah Al-Falaq, وَمِن شَرِّ غَاسِقٍ إِذَا وَقَبْ. He speaks, وَمِن شَرِّ, he speaks about the evil of what? Ghasiq is speaking about, it's an actual time. I was actually wanting to find out what are these terms. You know, sometimes you read in the Quran certain terms. You know, this guy sent me, one of the ulama that teachers at the houses, sent me a clock. And it's a 24-hour time of what they used to use. The times, they were actual words. And ghasaq was a certain time in the night. So you actually see each one had a meaning. Now this ghasaq and this darkness and this time of night where it's all sealed is the moment where evil takes place. Why? Because they have what? The security and the veil of the night. So Allah says in the Quran, وَمِن شَرِّ غَاسِقٍ إِذَا وَقَبْ. That the darkness of the night, the utterly dark part of the night, when it comes. And this is when the conspiracies took place. If anyone ever read the William Shakespeare's play of Caesar, when Cassius and Brutus and all these other fellas conspired and were together, they were conspiring in the night. The discussion took place in the night. Even the conspiracy to overthrow or to usurp the Khilafah of Ali ibn Abi Talib. The conspiracy, even Allah Azza wa Jal says in the verse he says, he goes, يَسْتَخْفُونَ مِنَ النَّاسِ. That they conceal their evil intentions and their deeds from the people. وَلَا يَسْتَخْفُونَ مِنَ اللَّهِ. This verse, every narration says, was about number 1 and number 2. Okay? This verse, that they were plotting back then, you know. And he says, يَسْتَخْفُونَ مِنَ اللَّهِ وَهُوَ مَعَهُمْ. That Allah is present while they are plotting. He says, he goes, إِذْ يُبَيِّتُونَ مَا لَا يَرْضَى مِنَ الْقَوْلِ. Now when you hear this verse, when you hear يُبَيِّتُونَ, the mabit is the night is the night rest, is where people hang out at night. That's what they call a mabit. So that they would meet, he says, in the night, and they would conspire in the night. وَكَانَ اللَّهُ بِمَا يَعْمَلُونَ مُحِيطًا. That Allah Azza wa Jal knew what they were doing. So this is what the night has. However, when it comes to the muttaqi, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, when he speaks about the righteous, he says, أَمَّا اللَّيْلِ فَصَافُونَ أَقْدَامَهُمْ تَالِينَ لِأَجْزَاءِ الْقُرْآنِ يُرَتِّلُونَهَا تَرْتِيلًا. That firstly, there are several parts here. He speaks about the night. And then he speaks about certain things that take place through the night, which we'll read as we go along. As it comes to the night here, I come to the introductory verse that I used, the one I introduced my speech with. That Allah Azza wa Jalla says, إِنَّ الْمُتَّقِينَ فِي جَنَّاتٍ وَعُيُونٍ. That the muttaqeen, the righteous, are in a paradise that has a garden and it has fountains around it. He says, آخِذِينَ مَا آتَاهُمْ وَرَبُّهُمْ. They're taking what Allah has given them. إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا قَبْلَ ذَلِكَ مُحْسِنِينَ. So to explain firstly, they're in gardens and fountains. Did they just end up there by chance? No. Allah says, they have been given this because before this there were people that did good. There were good doers. There were people that did things that were righteous. And then he says, كَانُوا قَلِيلًا مِنَ اللَّيْلِ مَا يَهْجَعُونَ. That in the night they would sleep little. This was an element. Of the reasons they are muttaqeen is they sleep little in the night. What does that mean that they sleep little? Does that mean they sleep 10 minutes? What is the meaning of sleeping little? How long are we supposed to sleep in the night? How long do they sleep? If you break up your night, on how long you have to sleep. Generally, most people sleep at 9:30, 10 o'clock. Most people generally sleep at these times, and they wake up depending on what time they have work. Some may stay up longer to 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, midnight, 1 a.m. But people that work generally don't stay up longer than that time. I have to be able to break up my time in the night. How do I spend my time when it comes to rest? How do I sleep? Allah Azza wa Jal, when He speaks about the righteous, when we're talking about the highest level of people, they sleep little in the night. This once again contradicts what fitness instructors tell you, because the fitness instructor will tell you that you have to drink more water and you have to sleep more, because you need the sleep for your muscles to recover when you train. However, Ahl al-Bayt alayhum as-salam say good health comes from less food, less drink, less sleep. Less food, less drink, less sleep. So less sleep is an element in how you get health to start off with. But worship has a lot to do with less sleep. So then he says about the ma yahja'un, he says, وَالْمُسْتَغْفِرِينَ بِالْأَصْحَارِ. Allah Azza wa Jal speaks about them. Those that what? Seek forgiveness from Allah Azza wa Jal. Fil ashar is when? Suhoor is that moment before dawn. Why is that moment so special? If you think about it, when people think darkness and night, you think it'd be the middle of the night. Why is the most relevant moment the moment before dawn? Firstly, this is the coldest moment of the day. This is the coldest time of the day. Secondly, it's the hardest time to wake up. That time is the most difficult time to wake up. So it is for those, the special ones, the ones that have been chosen to wake up in the night. Now, if we look at faith, faith and belief is internal. The external reflection of this faith could be one of two. It could be a true manifestation of what's hidden in the heart. I'm truly a person that is a righteous person and it reflects in my action, or I am an evil person and it reflects in my action. Then you have those that can have that facade, that look where they are righteous and they're not. So here's the problem. So before the people, I can pretend to be religious. Of the alamat, of the signs of a munafiq, Amir al-Mu'mineen says, he speaks about munafiq, he speaks about believer, he speaks about zahid, and he shows the alamat, the signs. Of the signs of a hypocrite is they rush to the deeds that are what? That are most given, what's the word? That are given the most lip service, or the ones most praised. You know, the ones that are always saying, Barakallah fiqh. They're always in the face of everything. As they say, you know, the hypocrite never misses a prayer. That they're always there. They're always in the right venues. Any religious function. Have you ever noticed that same person that always pops up in front of the camera to give a comment? Same bloke every time. And always wants to be there. Every time there's a religious event, he's the one standing next to some scholar in the background looking around. And always wants to be the one that's seen in the public eye. Even if you look in the Bible, there's verses in the Bible that speak about the way to worship. Well, there's ones where Jesus says, when you're fasting, you know, in the fast, he says to them, wash your face. Why does he say that, wash your face? He says so that the dryness in your face, listen to this, because when you're fasting, you have a dryness. In Ramadan, you'll notice your face is dry from what? From being thirsty and being hungry. It shows. You notice when someone's fasting, they're like a bit paler than usual. They can't be bothered, you know. They're almost at zombie stage, but they're not there. So Jesus says in this verse in the Bible, he says to wash your face, anoint your face, so people cannot tell that you are fasting. Why would he say this? And then he says, and when you pray, he says, do not pray in the middle of the temple. He says, but in the corners. If you read these verses, why would he be saying this? Because worship to Allah in secret is the exclusive worship. When I do anything in secret, it's between me and it's between Allah. It's between me and God. No one knows. It's a personal relationship that no one can understand. Once this man said, I'm going to the masjid in the middle of the night, and I want to pray night prayers in the masjid. There's no one there. I'll go for the walk, and when I arrive there, I can pray where it's just between me and God. See, Allah Azza wa Jal just doesn't allow this to happen. He'll test you. How much do you truly mean, I want to do it between me and God? I want to worship in a manner where it's strictly between myself and my Creator. Between my Creator and myself, I should say. So he arrives at the masjid and he is praying. You know, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم فضلا بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله. And then he gets submerged in this worship. Because it's a beauty. When you're praying by yourself and you're in that state, hani'an, you know, honestly, as they say, tuba, you know, they're blessed, the people. Blessed are the ones that worship in this manner. They are the most fortunate people, where they are in a state where it's between them and God, and they actually feel this type of worship. So he stands there and he's worshipping, submerged in his worship, and then he hears a rattle in the mosque. So he thinks to himself, God has sent me an audience. Well, I better keep up this, you know, Academy Award winning performance. So he continues to worship. His niyyah, his intention moves from qurbatan ilallah, from attaining the acceptance of God, all the way to getting the pleasure of this man that's entered the masjid. When he finishes, he turns around and finds a dog has entered the mosque and he's playing around with some metal equipment there. So this whole time, he was praying for this dog. This is where the problem is. This is where it lies. But in the night, this is where the real test comes in. That's why when Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says, Shi'atuna, what? Our Shia, our followers are who? Who is the Shia of Imam Ja'far ibn Muhamed al-Sadiq salawatullah alayhi? Who is his follower? He says, Shi'atuna, alladhina إذا خلوا عن الناس ذكروا الله كثيرا. Our Shia, our followers, are the ones that when they are away from people, in other words, when they are on their own does not necessarily mean in your house by yourself. On your own, I said, could mean that you're in the middle of Thailand, Japan, China, Burma. I'm just using countries where most likely none of you have relatives there. Okay? You're in a country where there's no one there, it's just you and God. You're in a place where there's no one there, it's just you and God. You remember God. What does he mean by dhakarullah? Dhakarullah means not remembering God in the sense that I do subhanallah, alhamdulillah, I do tasbih and glorification. Dhakarullah means when I am all alone in this position, no one's watching me, I don't commit sin, I don't fall to sin because I remember God. I remember that I am liable to be judged. I am liable to be punished. My time will come if I make a mistake. This is what makes the night worship something special. Even when it comes to worship, if you notice, if you have a look at the Sufis in general, the Sufis, when they we've done a fair bit of Sufi bashing, whether it's been Sayyid Mehdi or Sayyid Hussein or myself in this month, but there's a reason for this. The Sufi in general, when he dresses, he wears woolen clothes. Why? That's why they call them Sufis, because they wear Suf. They wear woolen clothes so it's rough on them. They eat little and they walk through the street and it's apparent, you can see him. And when you ask, you know, one of them was once seated and a friend of mine went to give him some money. He thought he was a homeless beggar. And the person said, no, I don't need money. I'm someone that's cut off the world. See, they take up the form of asceticism, which we are against. This isn't Zohd. And they take up this form of worship, like if anyone reads the history of Buddhism, Siddhartha Gautama, who was the person that they call Buddha, was married with children. He had a son, he was married and he had a son. And what he did is he deserted his wife and his child. Could you imagine? This is the leader of the faith. Deserted the wife and the child and went to live in a state of asceticism where he cuts himself off from the world. We don't believe in this in Islam. And this isn't zuhud in any way. This is why Amir al-Mu'mineen says, أفضل الزهد what? إخفاء الزهد. The best form of zuhud. And the meaning of zuhud, meaning the best form of detachment from this world, is what? إخفاء الزهد. Means that when it's not apparent. Not someone that walks through the street, when he sees people, he waves the air and then Assalamu alaikum, and then he does this humble, he arches his back so much it's going to snap any second. Do you know what I mean? This isn't the manner in which Islam is conducted. Do you honestly think the Prophet moved like that around the people? This isn't the manner in which they conduct themselves. They live like the people, with the people, but they're detached from the world. They don't want anything from this world, but it's not apparent. It's a relationship between them and their Creator, between the individual and the Creator. And this is why, once again, when it comes to getting up in the night, there is a certain amount. For example, in the verse when Allah speaks to Rasulullah, when he says, قُمِ اللَّيْلِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. He says to him to rise in the night and pray except a little. So only a little amount of sleep here. And then he says to him, نصفه أو انقص منه قليلا. Sometimes you worship a great amount of the night, like you did last night in Ihya al-Qadr. Then he says sometimes no, half the night sleep, half the night worship. And then he says from this, in another verse, he says, وَمِنَ اللَّيْلِ فَسَبِّحْهُ فَسَبِّحْهُ وَأَدْبَارُ السُّجُودِ. And of the night, meaning this last end of the night, glorify God. وَأَدْبَارُ السُّجُودِ is after your prayers, which is indication of any prayers, to remember Him in the night. And then he says, وَمِنَ اللَّيْلِ فَسَبِّحْهُ وَأَدْبَارِ النُّجُومِ. Here it's speaking about when as we call it, when you say, for example, the sun sets or the stars set. Here it's speaking about the stars setting. Taban, when we say the sun setting, the sun doesn't literally set. It's just when the earth turns in that direction, the sun sets. Same with the stars. As you reach the end of the night, some of the stars, they disappear. Doesn't mean that they vaporize, but the time comes when the stars come to a point where they go out. At that moment, it's the end of the night, towards Salah Subh. This is when I should be worshipping at night. Then he also mentions in the Quran, وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا عَسْعَسْ. This is when the night begins to depart, near the end. So that little moment of the night, of utmost importance, is that last moment before it becomes morning prayers. Now the second part of the night is with regard to the Quran. And this is where Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam says, أَمَّا اللَّيْلِ. He says, فَصَافُونَ أَقْدَامَهُمْ تَالِينَ لِأَجْزَاءِ الْقُرْآنِ يُرَتِّلُونَهَا تَرْتِيلًا. So firstly, the night the muttaqi is standing on his feet, he says, reciting the Quran, and he mentions several things about the recitation. Firstly, we need to understand where Allah Azza wa Jal mentions in this Quran, in the same verse that I mentioned earlier, that either rise for a portion of the night, or a little part of the night, or half the night. He says, وَزِدْ عَلَيْهِ وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا. So part of the night, if you want to stay up for longer, he says, رَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا. That when listen, can these three kids please split up? They've been talking. Can each one go sit with their parents? They've been here all morning doing it. So, all night, sorry. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Hassan, go sit with your dad. Okay, so, sorry, I just got lost there. أوزد عليه ورتل القرآن ترتيلا. Now, if I'm being told here to رتل القرآن ترتيلا, this means firstly that I have to read the Quran clearly. And I have to read it with affection. Now, what does he mean that I have to read it with affection? This is explained by Amir al-Mu'mineen here. He says, يُرَتِّلُونَهَا تَرْتِيلًا. He says, he goes, يُحَزِّنُونَ بِهِ أَنفُسَهُمْ وَيَسْتَثِيرُونَ بِهِ دَوَاءَ دَائِهِمْ. Now he's speaking about several things here. First he says that they grieve themselves with it. That when you read it, you grieve yourself with several reasons why you grieve. You reflect over stories. Honestly, the stories in the Quran that grieve me the most are the stories that make you feel this small. Why do they make you feel this small? You think of all the things people have done, and the moment they turn to Allah for forgiveness, He forgives them. And then you start thinking to yourself how little you are. How useless you are. I'm talking about myself. How useless I am. How little I am. How many wrong things do I do when I turn back to a Lord that always accepts me? Has never closed the door on me. When the door seals, it's because I closed it. Never ever closes the door. Whenever I want to return, these are the things that grieve you the most. That affect. And he says in here, دَوَاءَ دَائِهِمْ. Now, دَوَاءَ دَائِهِمْ, the Quran is that medicine for the ailment. You know, sometimes someone tells me, I want something spiritual. Give me something spiritual. I want to read. I say, read the Quran. Read the Quran. It is the medicine. When you read the Quran, if you sit and listen to the Quran, and it's got to be read with affection. You know, sometimes you hear someone, they read it, and it's not read with any affection. For example, someone says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. It doesn't have that affection. And then you have someone that reads it in a manner that they get affected with how they read it. And this is how you're supposed to read the Quran. You have to read it in a manner that you are experiencing what's being said. Then he says, فَإِذَا مَرُّوا بِآيَةٍ فِيهَا تَشْوِيقٌ رَكَنُوا إِلَيْهَا طَمَعًا. Listen to the words. If there is any verse that has anything like, when they come up a verse that brings about eagerness, tashweeq. What for? What do people have shawq? For what? For Jannah. Any verse, sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Any verse of the Quran that fiha tashweeq, any verse that gives them that feeling, that eagerness, what do? Listen to the words. Fiha tashweeq rakanu ilayha tama. In other words, what does that mean? That they lean towards it, or they pursue it vividly, you should say. Rakanu ilayha tama'a. Why does it say tama'a? Because no one deserves paradise. Paradise is given out of God's mercy. No individual can ever earn paradise. We do the prerequisites that achieves God's mercy, and God's mercy becomes the bridge that takes you into paradise. But we do the prerequisites. Tama'a, because you have tama' with something you haven't achieved. This is why that رَكَنُوا إِلَيْهَا طَمَعًا, because their tama' is what? Not in the paradise, their tama' is in the means that gets them paradise, which is God's mercy. Why would you not be tama'an in something that when Allah Azza wa Jal introduces a surah in the Quran, He introduces it with His mercy? Why would you not have this tama' when Allah Azza wa Jal encourages you through the teachings of Ahlul Bayt to read a dua that begins with Allahumma inni as'aluka bi rahmatika allati wasi'at kulla shay. A dua that you read more than any other dua, it's introduced with mercy. The first thing he puts forward is everything that you can think of, every attribute, every facet that is attributed to Allah, anything that's attributed to Allah is a subset. It falls within the mercy of Allah. Allah's mercy encompasses everything. It is above everything. It's beyond everything. It is around everything. Of course I'm going to be greedy for Allah's mercy. Of course I will reach for Allah's mercy. It's so big. It's so grand. Why would I not? But at the same token, as the Sayyid mentioned last night in his lecture, the equilibrium. You need to have a balance. And this is why the next part, he says, I cut out a bit which I was deliberate. وَإِذَا مَرُّوا بِآيَةٍ فِيهَا تَخْوِيفٍ. Then they hear verses that bring fear. The ones that speak about the fire of hell. Because I want to go into more detail in these two parts tomorrow night, that's why. إِذَا مَرُّوا بِآيَةٍ فِيهَا تَخْوِيفٍ أَصْغَوْا إِلَيْهَا مَسَامِعَ قُلُوبِهِمْ. Listen to the words that are being put here. If they hear any verse in the Quran that brings about fear, what verses bring about fear? The verses that discuss, if you like, read Surah Al-Ghashiyah, if you read Surah Al-Haqqa, you read the words that are mentioned with regard to the fire of hell, or you read verses in the Quran when it speaks, like one verse in the Quran that says, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The one that says, قُوا أَهْلِيكُمْ أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ عَلَيْهَا مَلَائِكَةٌ غِلَاظٌ شِدَادٌ لَا يَعْصُونَ اللَّهَ مَا أَمَرْهُمْ. You think about this. Do you know the United States Marine Service train their Marines? They train them and they teach them to cry. Do you know why they teach them to cry? They say when you're being interrogated, and you're being interrogated, if you cry, you may strike a note in someone's heart. They may feel sorry for you. If you put on the act that I was forced into this, I'm somewhere from the southern Bible belt, I'm working on a farm, I'm nothing, and you start to cry and you put on this act, there might be someone, there will be, there's always that someone that may feel sorry for you. They might have that soft spot in their heart. As for the angels in the fire of hell, Allah Azza wa Jal says these angels are stern. They do not have a speck of mercy. In fact, when they are called by the people of hell, it says that 10,000 years later they answer them. And they say, what do you want? 10,000 years. And then after they request, could you please ask your Lord to bring down the punishment upon us, make this punishment less. It says after 10,000 years they return to give the reply. There's no mercy in the fire of hell within these angels. Taman, there's another discussion, but that's on another side with regard to mercy. That these angels are there, they're stern, they're wrathful, they're angels of Allah's wrath. And this is why there is takhweef. He says, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, he says they will bend over their ears, they turn their ears towards what? The ears of their heart. So the words of takhweef aren't something that is, you hear that goes in one side and goes out the other. The words that they hear enter their hearts, they penetrate the hearts of them, meaning their souls are affected by these verses. And when he says this, وَظَنُّوا أَنَّ زَفِيرَ جَهَنَّمْ وَشَهِيقَهَا فِي أُصُولِ أَذَانِهِمْ. This I will explain when I explain the other point of paradise. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to not take us from this moment without granting us emancipation from the fire of hell. We ask, especially this is the month, to ask for this. Do not take me from the moment I'm in right now without emancipating me from the fire of hell, without forgiving my shortcomings and my sins, and without granting me the intercession of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Bas barakat salat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad.